Well, lovely to see you here. I'm Sophie Hannah. I am the course director for the Crime and Thriller Writing Masters Programme here at ICE. So what I thought I would do is I will just describe the course to you initially. I'm sure you've got loads of questions, but if I give you my sort of description of the course, some of what I say will answer your questions, and then any questions that you have aside from that you can ask then. So this course was created in 2019 and our first cohort started in January 2020, and so our first iteration of the course was interrupted by COVID, but we soldiered on and went to Zoom and all of that. But we're now into our third offering. So we've had 3 cohorts so far, and the third one has just finished one of its residential modules. And the course was created by Dr. Midge Gillis, who's the head of creative writing here at ICE, and she asked me if I wanted to help her create a crime and thriller masters programme, and I said I did, especially when I heard that the teaching would all happen here at Madingley Hall. I was like, it's the perfect setting. And it really is I mean, especially if you love the kind of golden age Agatha Christie, everyone together in a country house, which I am a big fan of. It really is the perfect setting. It's a beautiful place and we're very well looked after here at Madingley Hall. So Midge and I created the course, and it's a 2-year master's course. The first year is when the teaching happens, so it's a low residency course which enables people to come in. You know, we have lots of overseas students who are like busy doing their day job in Colorado, but they come for the residential module. So all of the teaching takes place in 4 separate residential modules. So the first one is typically sort of late September, the second one is early December, the third one is end of February the following year, and the fourth one is mid-May. So in your first academic year, there would be 4 of those residential modules. So during those residential modules, you would come to Madingley Hall and basically live here for 3 nights and 4 days. And each of those residential modules is quite intensive. So there will typically be on the Monday, it's always Monday to Thursday, and the Thursday is a sort of half day. So on Thursday we finish at like 2:30. But the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday are quite full on. And there will be probably 4 or 5 sessions throughout the day. On the Monday, there's an evening session as well. And so that's when the teaching happens. Now, when I say the teaching, it's not all the same kind of teaching that happens within the residential module. So some sessions will be me or one of the other teaching team members teaching on a topic in the traditional fashion. Others will be, you know, somebody comes in and there's a kind of activity that we all do. So my friend, the crime writer Elizabeth Haynes, she used to be now let me get this right, she used to be a homicide intelligence analyst. She's now a crime writer. So she has been in a couple of times to work with different cohorts. And she brings in kind of evidence and sort of paperwork from a crime, from I think a real crime. She's redacted all the confidential details, and she puts the students into groups and we all work on gathering actual intelligence from what she brings. So that's the sort of atypical, that's not traditional teaching, that's like we're all doing an activity. And then there are guest speaker sessions. So this module that we've just finished teaching, we had Jamie Hodder Williams, who for many, many years was the managing director of Hodder and Stoughton, big crime publisher. So he came in to talk about his life and his career as a publisher and what he thinks about the current publishing landscape, how he thinks the best way of creating success as a crime writer might look. So he was one of our guest speakers. We also had on Monday night Martin Edwards, who is one of the world's leading authorities on the golden age of crime fiction. And he's published 2 huge, as Alan Partridge would say, don't drop it on your foot, you know, huge sort of tomes about golden age crime fiction. He knows everything about the period. So he came and did a talk about the golden age of crime fiction, and then he had dinner with all the students and the teaching team, and they asked him questions. So within each residential module, the teaching is very varied, but it's fairly full on by Thursday afternoon when everyone goes home, they're feeling a bit like, wow, that was intense. Everyone goes home and has a long nap. So there's 4 of those. And then in the second year, there isn't the formal teaching. In the second year, that is when you write your novel. Now, the course's aim is that everyone will complete a novel by the end of the 2 years. So it is the course is geared up towards it being a crime and thriller novel writing course. Now, if somebody said, I really passionately want to write a crime or thriller stage play or screenplay or movie script, I'm pretty sure we had that approved by all 37 committees that need to approve things at Cambridge. So I think that's okay, but so far that hasn't happened. It's always been novels. So the second year, you've had all the taught modules from year 1. Second year, you go away and write your novel, and throughout that year, you have 5 supervisions, which should ideally be spaced out because you don't want to have all your supervisions in the first week. So 5 supervisions, 4 of them are with your dedicated supervisor who will be assigned to you at the beginning of year 2, and the 5th is with me, so I have 1 with everybody. So you have that. And you also have 1 residential, which is not really a taught thing. You come to Madingley Hall for 2 days and 1 night, and it's kind of like the celebration of everything you've achieved in the 2 years. That's usually in April. So if you were starting in September next year, your final residential in year 2 would be April 25. Are we 23? Yeah, 25, yeah. So at that final residential, there's a chance to present your work. Everyone, there's a kind of cabaret. I mean, not a cabaret, but, you know, like, in fact, I was just saying to our cohort now that the final residential for them next year is their chance to perform their work. And one woman said, what do you mean perform? I was like, it just means you read out some of your work. There's nothing to worry about. So there's that. So that's a 2-day residential module in the second year. But other than that, it's just the supervisions. You're writing your book, and I encourage the students in year 2 to arrange other things that they want to arrange. So one of the features of the taught modules in year 1 is that there's always a writing workshop. So the maximum number of students we can have on the course is 18. And so we divide you into groups of maximum 6 for the writing workshops. And so by the end of the first taught year, you will know that format of how the writing workshop works. And I always encourage our students to keep that up unofficially in the second year, because by then you're such a tight-knit group and you love that regular support and contact and feedback opportunity, and there's no need to stop that, you know. So every group so far has wanted to carry on the writing workshop, and they're still constantly in touch on WhatsApp. I went to the Iceland Noir Crime Festival in Reykjavik recently, and loads of the students from cohort 2 had all got together and gone on holiday together to Iceland to attend this festival. So, so year 2 is really an opportunity for you to kind of make it what you want, but from the formal point of view, there's the supervisions, the final residential. And then in terms of assessed work, how the course is assessed, there are 5 points at which you hand in work to be assessed. So for the workshops in the modules, you're handing in work just to be workshop, that's not marked. But the assessed work consists of, in the first year, 4 creative writing pieces, 1 after each module. And those are 1,250 words long, maximum. And so there's 4 of those. Also in the first year, you hand in 2 critical essays after modules 2 and 3. So the way it works is module 1 finishes, you hand in your creative piece. Module 2 finishes, you hand in a creative piece and a critical piece. Same with module 3, creative and critical. Module 4, it's just a creative piece that you hand in. That makes up 40%. All of that I've just described makes up 40% of your overall mark. In the second year, you don't hand in anything throughout the year apart from any bits of work you give your supervisor to look at for feedback. But at the end of the year, so on the 1st of July, you will hand in a 20,000 word piece of creative writing. Now that should be, well, I mean, it can be whatever you want it to be, but ideally that would be a sort of substantial extract from your novel. And then in addition to that, you hand in a critical essay again of 5,000 words, which is sort of like a critical commentary on your writing process and what you've produced for your creative piece. We give you loads and loads of guidance as to how to approach the critical pieces, because everybody panics about them. Not at this stage, actually. At this stage, everyone goes, oh yeah, fine, critical pieces. Then they arrive at the course and they go, what does this mean? How do I do this? So don't worry. We cater for the fact that everyone's scared of that bit and we teach you how to do it. And it's nothing to worry about. It's all fine. So that's what you hand in the second year, and that makes up 60% of the overall mark. And in that year 2 creative piece, your 20,000 words is mainly going to be an extract from your novel, but a tiny part of it is going to be a letter to an agent where you're pitching your novel and asking for representation, and a synopsis of the novel. So it's, for the actual creative writing extract, it's 20,000 words minus the length of a letter to an agent and a synopsis. We have, throughout the taught part of the course, regular visits from agents, authors. We get, someone will come in and talk about self-publishing, someone will talk about digital publishing. We have agents coming in talking about how to get a film and TV agent and how to work with that. So we aim to do as much kind of practical, industry-geared teaching as here's a lecture on why Agatha Christie is the best thing since sliced bread, even though she is the best thing since sliced bread. We do teach you that as well. I do anyway. But there's also, so for example, I'm now planning module 3. This was module 2 for our 3rd cohort. I'm now planning module 3, and I am doing 2 sessions called How to Think About Success, and that's the name of one session, and another session is called Writers and Money. And I guarantee that no other master's programme in any university has that, because, one of the reasons is that as well as teaching here and being a writer, I also run a coaching programme for writers called Dream Author Coaching, where I coach writers on how to sort of handle the psychological and emotional challenges of the writing life and all the career stuff and how to think about it. And I have many, many bees in my bonnet when it comes to crime writing. And one of them is, I think writers think about money in relation to their writing in completely the wrong way. Most people do. So I like to try and bring all of that into this course, because we really want it to be as immersive as possible. Every possible kind of goodies that we can give you, we want to give you. So, speaking of goodies, one of the main areas of goodie-ishness in this course is the teaching team. We have an incredible teaching team comprising many famous best-selling writers who are also lovely and brilliant teachers. So, Ellie Griffiths, #1 best-selling crime writer, hugely successful. She has been a regular member of our teaching team since day one. S.J. Paris, who writes a series of historical crime novels starring Giordano Bruno, #1 best-selling author as well. We have in the past been visited by and are going to be visited regularly by, this is slightly different because he's not a member of the teaching team, but he's a regular guest, Alex Michaelides, author of The Silent Patient, former Hollywood scriptwriter. Next module, we've got Harriet Tice coming to talk to us and teach us. She is currently #2, I think, in the bestseller chart. We've got Charlotte King, who is a huge success on the self-publishing sort of Amazon digital circuit. Emily Winslow, she writes both crime fiction and she's also written a sort of true crime sort of memoir type book, which is amazing. And she is, without exception, the best editor I've ever come across. She edits my books before anyone else sees them, and she is just a genius and one of the cleverest people you could hope to meet. Have I mentioned everyone? Hold on. Oh, and we've got Jessica Jalvi, who is an amazingly talented Scandinavian crime writer. And we've got Hope Adams, who has just published she's I mean, I can tell you this actually. I can tell you her exact age, and I know she won't mind because she happens to be my mum. Seriously. She actually happens to be my mum. But she has just published her first crime novel at the age of 78. She's written novels before, so she is a member of the teaching team as well, which is amazing because people go, you know that teacher over there who taught us yesterday, is that your mum? And I go, yes. And, you know, she's an extremely successful crime writer. Can I help it that she's my mum? And in fact, it's quite funny because my sister is the managing director of Bookouture, which is a digital publisher. So they don't do print books, they do digital first. I mean, they do print on demand. But she sometimes comes in to talk about digital publishing because Bookouture makes gazillions of pounds every year selling shed loads of digital books. And that's really changed the landscape of the publishing industry. So it's quite funny because I kind of go, are you going to meet all my rellies? Yes, you are. But, you know, they all happen to work in the crime industry. So for next module, we've got Alex, we've got Harriet, Emily, Ellie, Jess, SJ Paris, who's Steph. When we started out, we also had John Appleton, who had worked in publishing all his life and was an amazing editor and sort of strategic crime writing advisor. And as far as I'm aware, there is just nothing out there in the higher education crime fiction space that even comes close. Now, obviously, I'm biased, right? This is my course, but you know, I do just with that disclaimer that I'm biased because it's my course. I also do genuinely believe it is the best possible postgraduate crime writing course. So I think that's all the information that I can think of immediately. So maybe this would be a good time for you to start hurling questions at me and I will answer them. Eddie, you've got a list, so let's work our way through your list.
Some of mine are to do with the actual application form.
Oh yes, of course. Yes, I always forget that applicants are worried about the application, and I'm not, because I'm like, it's gonna be fine. So, but anyway, yes, let's talk about the application.
So what it says in the supporting documents, it says, below are details of course-specific questions and other supporting information you'll be asked to provide before you can submit your application. Which
Before?
seems a little contrary to me, but also there's no mechanism. It doesn't say...
No, have you had a look at the application form? Because it's on the website, I think, already.
Because it said before you submit your application, I wasn't sure whether if you opened your actual application, whether that would be something different.
Do they say what the list is? What is it?
The research proposal.
Oh yeah, okay.
Personal statement and the writing.
Yeah. So what they mean is have those to hand, because when you're submitting your application, there'll be a bit where it says attach CV, put in detail. So
I'm ready now.
Yeah. So there's no first you have to do this, then you get approved, then you get to apply. It's not that. It's just this is what you need to have to hand, and some of those terms sound a bit more complicated than they are. So your research proposal, what that means is what the novel you're currently thinking you might write if you did the course. Now, that does not bind you to anything. So if now you think, well, I might really want to write a novel where a tube investigations officer solves a series of mysteries on the Jubilee line, you could put that in and describe that idea, and we would never say, if you had a different idea when you arrived, if you said, actually, I've changed my mind, I want to write cosy crime where a cat solves the mystery, we're not going to go, but you said in your... Okay. Not at all. So in that box of the application form, just put what you... If you had to kind of guess, if a genie popped out of a lamp and said, give us your pitch now for what you think you might write, it's just a description of that. So it's your opportunity to describe the kind of book you might like to write, what you want to have at the end of it. So you might say, I want to write this and I want it to be in this sort of area of the genre. I've always loved Ruth Rendell, so I want it to be a bit like Ruth Rendell in this sense, and that's the research proposal bit. And then other than that, it's CV, references, a statement on why you want to do the course.
Okay, so the references is supposed to come afterwards?
Do you not have to say who they are, or do they ask for that? Yeah, they may not. You may not need references.
Yeah, it says you need to provide the details of the two referees.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so just have those to hand
Okay.
to fill in on the form. And I think, if I'm not wrong, I think you can save your application as you're filling it in. I don't think it's kind of like you start it and then you have to do it all. I'm pretty sure you can save it, and I think so.
Okay.
But if you're applying and you have any trouble, so if some form does something unpredictable, or if there's any faffing or something, you know, a system crash or anything like that, and it doesn't just go, thank you, we've got your application, email me and I'll sort it out. Sophie@sophiehannah.com.
Okay. Now,
Or any problems when you're filling in your application. And this goes for everyone who's watching the video as well, not just the people in the room. If you hit any kind of obstacle, even if it's just a mind drama obstacle of, oh my God, I can't bear filling in a form, it's so scary, email me and tell me what you're worried about on the form. It's super straightforward. You just have to sort of know what you need to put in each box.
well, that kind of leads me to the bit about, in the research proposal it says an outline of the intended novel.
Yeah.
Any preferred format, or is it just, as you said,
No. However you think it makes sense to describe it. And it doesn't mean an outline as in, here's what happens in chapter 1, here's what happens. It does not have to be a detailed scene-by-scene plan. Most people, in fact everybody so far, has in that box they've put like maybe a 2 to 5 paragraph description of the novel they might write. Yeah.
That's good. Because I was going to ask you about an account of the sources upon which the writing project will draw. And I was thinking,
Is that one of the things it tells you to have? Okay, so I would use that to maybe mention some of the books that have inspired you and that you've learnt what you know about crime fiction from. So you might say, if you wanted to do the Tubi idea, you might say, as source material, I'm going to be rereading the work of, and then the following people, because I really admire their work and I want to base. Ruth Rendell, Barbara Vine, she wrote under the name Barbara Vine as well. She wrote a book set on the tubes called, I think, King Solomon's Carpet. So you could say, I definitely want to read King Solomon's Carpet by Ruth Rendell because I know that's it. And by the way, you don't have to say you're writing a Tubi book. I keep assuming that you are, but that's just for the sake of argument. If you want to write something that's nothing to do with the underground, that is totally fine too.
yeah, the reason I said that was, or I asked that was, I wasn't sure whether it meant, should I say, I have experience of the location and I have experience of investigating.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a relevant detail because that is some of your source material.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of just an opportunity to think, anywhere that your ideas or anything is going to come from, whether it's personal experience or professional experience or reading, you can put that at the end of that. Yeah.
Part in this, it says, an outline of ideas related to your project which might form the basis of a commentary on it. But it says commentary.
So that is referring to the critical essays.
Okay.
Just read me that bit again.
It says, an outline of ideas related to your project which might form the basis of a commentary on it.
Okay. So whatever your proposed project is, if there's anything in there that's sort of thematically interesting, so if it's a noir procedural, you might say, obviously what I'm going to be writing is in the noir genre, so in terms of my commentary, I might look at how my work fits in with the noir genre in general, that sort of thing, I think. Or any thematic or sort of, like imagining that somebody, a sort of English literature academic, was reading your novel that you're going to write. What areas of interest might they write about? So if an academic was writing about my crime fiction, they might mention that my protagonist is always an individual against, on their own, fending for themselves. So if that was true of your novel, you could say, one of the things I might focus on in my commentary is that, there's this theme of the individual against the crowd. anything like that that could be a sort of thematic literary consideration.
That's fine. I mean, I was thinking along the lines of alienation of the
Perfect.
bad guy against the.
Perfect. That exact kind, that sort of genre of thing is what goes in that box.
I
Yes.
just wanted to know
Yeah.
what exactly all that.
Yeah.
was, right? Oh, to be honest, that was really kind of.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions, but they're sort of split between application and the actual sort of course
Okay,
itself.
sure.
So perhaps if I start with the course,
Yeah.
apologies if you've already mentioned it, but when we're doing workshops in our first year, what specifically will we be focusing on in each? As well, it's not going to be assessed as such, but for the piece of work that we then sort of submit, then do creative sort of commentary on, what will we be assessed by our peers on?
Well, you won't be assessed by your peers. You'll get feedback. Yeah. So so basically, each workshop, what we encourage you to do is, obviously you have to choose what to hand in to be workshopped on. So we encourage you to hand in the thing that you think it would be most helpful to you to get feedback on. So if you've got a super polished bit of writing that you think is just incredibly impressive, don't hand in that for the workshop because it's already brilliant and it's probably finished. But if there's something that you can't quite get to work, or you think it partly works but there's something wrong with it, and you'd like some help in kind of shedding light on what tweaks might be needed to make it work better, that's a good kind of thing to hand in. I say this all the time, and I'm not sure anyone listens to me because I think everyone is tempted to hand in their most impressive writing. So then what happens is, on the Wednesday afternoon of every residential module, there's a hand-in slot where you go to your computer and upload your piece for workshopping to a forum on the virtual learning environment, which is our course's sort of online home. So if you were in, say, Group A, you'd upload your piece to the Group A workshopping pieces. Then everybody reads it that night, everyone in Group A and the tutor for that writing workshop session. And then the Thursday morning, so this morning it happened, is when the workshops are. And so you would meet with your tutor and your group of 5 or 6, and each piece is workshopped in turn. And all that is everyone discusses the piece, says what they think the strengths are, says what they think could be improved, but it's all done in a very constructive. Nobody says like, well, I thought that was rubbish. It's it's all about like, here's how it could be improved. And you can either just hand in your piece on its own, or you can say, I specifically want guidance on whether you think there's enough suspense in this, or do you think the pace is working? And it's up to you which one of those you do.
Will consideration of different subgenres be taken into account? Because I guess to a certain extent that will dictate the style and how it fits in within the wider context.
Of course.
Is that something that we could ask for feedback on?
Yes. Yeah. So you could hand in a piece and say, this is the opening of my hard-boiled noir cop novel. Could you bear that in mind when you're workshopping it? So then, if the beginning reads like a domestic psychological thriller where a woman's wondering if her husband is gorgeous and lovely or gorgeous and a psychopath, then we might go, well, this is brilliant, but it doesn't read like the beginning of a hard-boiled cop novel. So that's the kind of pointer that you can give when handing in for the workshopping that can inform what then happens. Some people do that, and some people just hand in the piece and there might not be any necessary context to give. But absolutely, things like what subgenre and what particular expectations you want to create and fulfill are very much taken into account.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then sort of extending from that, would you advise, well, to an extent obviously it would be up to our own discretion, I imagine, but to what extent would you advise that we submit a piece of what we're thinking to submit in for a year 2 essentially, or could the year 1 pieces that we submit be, I suppose, opportunities for us to experiment while we're still
Yes.
figuring out?
So both of those are a brilliant option. So I can see, we have a range. People do both. So some people arrive at the course knowing what they want to write, and they never change their mind. They have their book, they know that's their book, they want to write it, so they want to use the workshops to workshop bits of that book. They want to hand in for assessment bits of that book, and then in year 2 they hand in a different bit of that book because that's their focus. Other people come onto this course and think, I don't want to be committing to any full book length project until I've had my year of being taught all about crime writing. So they might hand in, and I can think of a few students who did this. So their first piece for workshopping might be comic crime, the second might be Golden Age, the third might be hard-boiled, you know, and then they experiment. And some of them even experiment with their projects for the assessment in year 1, and they only decide, I've got students who are now 3 months into year 2 who still don't know what novel they want to write and are starting to think, maybe I need to make a decision at some point. So neither of those options is better or worse. If you know which you want to do, then listen to your creative instinct. Just my rule for life is the best reason for doing anything ever is because we really want to. And unless there's some other reason why we shouldn't do what we really want to, which sometimes there is, if I want to like throw a rock at someone who's annoying me, there is a powerful reason why I shouldn't do that because it's bad and wrong and I'll end up in prison, right? But when it comes to something like this, do what you most want to do. If you're undecided about which way you'd rather play it, what I always do in those situations is I make a list of all the reasons I'd want to do it that way, make a list of all the reasons I want to do it that way. I look at those reasons and I think, which list do I prefer? Which reasons do I like more? And I go with that. Yeah, but either is fine. The one thing to point out is that nothing can be assessed. Workshopping is different. Anything can be workshopped at any time. For the assessed pieces, you can't hand in something to be assessed if it's already been assessed. So if you do hand in bits of your novel for assessment in year 1, those extracts can't then be in your 20,000 words from year 2. But that works out fine because you've got a whole novel's worth of words to choose from. Yeah.
Actually, another question, if that's okay.
Sure.
As we're talking about this, my question is going to be on experience.
Yes.
So when you're looking at running the courses for particularly year 1, but obviously year 2 as well, is there a prerequisite of experience?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. And, once the admissions are all in and the deadline has gone, because I'm the course director, the admissions come to me. I could not care even in the slightest what anyone's done before. What I care about is how passionate are people about doing the course. So if somebody comes and says, I've never written a word of crime fiction before, but I would love to do this course, I cannot wait, I'm raring to go, I'm so interested to learn everything, I would any day favour that candidate over someone who said, I've written 12 crime novels and they're all published, and yeah, I thought I might do this course, or I might do some macrame, or I might train to be a figure skater. I'm like, no, that person does not really want to do our amazing course. So yeah, doesn't matter at all. Yeah. Any other? I can see, it's quite funny, I have 2 kids, 18 and 20, and they're always saying, Mum, you're so thorough. You're just a bit too thorough, because I always want to think of every detail. And I think I've been so thorough that probably some of your questions have already been answered, because I try and tell you everything I can about the course.
Seems super helpful. I'm trying to think of all these other questions just in case.
Just for the sake of it. Yeah, no, I think I've told you absolutely everything about the course. I mean, the thing I should stress though is it's really good fun. I mean, when Midge asked me if I wanted to create a crime writing course, my first thought was, I'm a bit busy. I've got other things that I'm busy with. And she said, it's at Madingley Hall. I was like, oh, there's topiary there and nice dinners. So then I was really keen. And I've been doing it now for 4 years. And I just love all the bits where we're here and all the interactions with the students and the teaching. I just love it. It is fun. And the students, I mean, it's challenging, it's hard work, but everyone finds it to be just the biggest fun that well, I was going to say that they could possibly have, maybe not the biggest fun they could possibly have, but it is really fun. And I think that is important to emphasise because, you know, my view is if you're having fun while learning stuff, it's the best way to get, you know, to get the work done, to get stuff done.
I think that's really exciting because people can come together, and the great thing is other people's strengths will be other people's weaknesses, but everybody shares the same passion, so
Yes.
people just want to talk about it.
Exactly, and it's like you get together with a load of people who all have the exact same obsession as you at the same time, and it really matters to everyone, and that's why the group dynamic works so well. So yeah, and it's a really mixed course. You know, there's just one session is so different from the next session. So yeah, I love it. And the students, you know, the students who were leaving just then after module 2 finished, like they didn't want to go. They were like, bye, see you soon. You know, they were like hugging in the lobby, and it's a really, really ace course. Yeah.
I didn't think it wouldn't be because I'm sort of sitting here almost ants in the pants, right? Where can I sign? Where can I sign?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the deadline is what, 31st of Jan? Yeah. So get your applications in
Definitely.
and off we go.
And sorry, again, just another couple of questions actually. So the two questions just related to the application that stick out in my mind are, first of all, what happens directly after we've submitted? So
Oh, yeah,
say
that's a good-
it's, you know, February.
Yeah.
What happens in February? And I guess my second question is, a bit before that, when you're kind of looking at applications, how do you weight each of the different elements we submit by degree of importance? Like,
I don't think that doesn't feel like something I ever think. So what I do is I start reading, and very soon I see, is this a keen, enthusiastic, clever person who's going to enhance the group and the experience? And if the answer's yes, then we interview that candidate. So what happens is you submit your applications by end of Jan. There's some paperwork that needs to be done by the admin team. They then send the applications to me. I then look at them almost immediately. So probably, you know, first week of Feb, end of the first week of Feb. I then say to the admin team, these are the candidates we want to. We have to interview people. We can't just say, yes, you're in. So there will always be an interview. And so the interviews are scheduled for the week of the 6th of March, and they will be via Zoom. Now, then, I always know by the end of every interview whether I'm offering a place to that person. But the university has an admin system that has to be gone through, so candidates don't hear for a while, because there's quite a few sort of administrative hurdles. So what I always say to people is it's going to be a few weeks before you hear, but sometimes I'll say, but please don't worry, or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like once or twice, people who've got to the interview stage, I haven't said, don't worry. But I normally do, because there are a lot of people who don't get interviewed. I generally know from the application form whether someone is going to work well on the course, and I really like to let everyone who could benefit from the course benefit from it. And we have been able to do that so far, so we've never had a situation where I felt, you know, oh, I'd love to offer a place to that person, but I can't. So it all works out fine, but it's a few weeks before you get that confirmation. Because of the admin system.
Good with references.
Yes, so references. Now, there's a thing here that I need to remember. So sometimes the admin team have said to me, this person hasn't got an academic reference, so is it okay if it's like someone who's known them for a long time? And so there's been occasions where I've had to say, yes, that's fine, I'll accept a reference for that person. But if you've got, say if you've not been in any kind of university for a while, and so your academic reference would be someone who hasn't worked with you recently, it's absolutely fine to have just a professional reference, or, you know, a character reference. But, you know, professional references are good because that's someone who's worked with you and, you know, that kind of thing.
I took an MBA about 3 years ago.
So a
So
tutor
one of
from
the
that.
academics has said, yes, they'll do it.
Perfect. So that person would be perfect, and then a colleague from work would be perfect.
So
Yeah.
could it be a colleague or does it? I mean, my boss said he would
Yeah, perfect.
do it,
Yeah.
but he wasn't sure. He's not academic, so he's not sure what.
No, it's fine. He's worked with you for years. So the MBA person and your boss will be perfect. Yeah. Have you got people?
I do, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got my university tutor from a few years ago, and I've got my boss basically from.
Perfect.
And talking about references, so before the 31st, do we just have to supply the email address, the contact details, and they're contacted afterwards? Or
Yes.
get the reference.
Okay, hold on. I'm almost 100% sure that you just supply their details, and then if we're offering you a place, then the university will contact them, or will tell you to contact them. I think the university does that though. So yeah, you just need to have them lined up.
And also, I noticed, I remember at the top of the sheet that
Yeah.
it's got, it says about transcripts and degree certificates. So
Right.
if, let's say, you haven't been in university for a while,
Yeah.
do you need a transcript of all the courses, or do you just need the grade that you got?
I don't know the answer to that. The university administration team will know that. So the thing to do about that is to email creative writing, all one word, all lowercase, at ice.cam.ac.uk and just ask that exact question, and they will tell you. Because I never see the sort of the thing I see is the sort of the substantive bit of the application form, but any documents like that don't come to me anyway. So, but the admin team will be able to tell you.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
If you think of any questions once you've left, then feel free to email me and I will answer them then.
Thank you. Did you say we email? Is it Sophie?
Sophie@sophiehannah.com. That's the email address that gets to me fastest. It's virtually glued to my eyeballs at all hours of the day and night. I do have a university email as well, which is shj26@ice.cam.ac.uk, and I check that once a day every weekday.